Illinois.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning is John Cash, johncashnews.com, Chicago Way podcast. Sign up, pay up for John's musings and a lot of contributors that he has on his at his outlet as well. Maybe someday me if I'm so lucky. Glenn Kirshner is a former assistant U.S. attorney, which is a baffling statement on its face when you listen to this guy. He is a legal analyst for MSNBC, and he is advocating that Trump be imprisoned pending trial. He is a greater threat to the public than, I don't know, just about anybody else that Mr. Kirshner can think of. Take a listen to his argument.
You know, Nicole, I would argue that the institutions of government are proving themselves ill-equipped or perhaps not up to the task of treating the sort of ultimate ruling class criminal, a former president of the United States who tried to install himself in the Oval Office over the will of the American voters as a dictator. He tried to bring an end to the American experiment. It doesn't feel like the court system or the institutions of government writ large are meeting the urgency of the moment. And, you know, when I was sitting in court when the gag order was originally being argued, and I heard Judge Chutkan say the following, if it were any other defendant who was on release pending trial in a felony federal case who accused the prosecutor who was handling his case of being a deranged thug, that person would be in pretrial detention. You know, Nicole, one, that is indisputably true. And two, it is so disheartening because it is an express recognition that we're treating Donald Trump differently than, and here's the real injustice of it, the tens of thousands of other pretrial detainees all across this country who are sitting in jail cells awaiting trial because the judge has determined by clear and convincing evidence that they are either a flight risk or a danger to the community. I would hazard a guess that not a single one of them is as dangerous to the community or to society or to our democracy as is Donald Trump. But the system is, for whatever reason, declining to meet the moment.
You know who's dangerous? This guy. And anyone else who supports this fellow at any party, social gathering, I can imagine them all. All the journalists who scream about authoritarian rule are the ones who would jail a political opponent.
You know what the problem is with the system? It's going too easy on Trump.
He's gonna win, and that's why the system sucks. Right?
This is great. First of all, there's nothing. I mean, this guy is supposedly an officer of the court. He's Exhibit A in why people have completely lost faith in the Department of Justice. Ruling class criminal. I'm sorry, Counselor, has President Trump been convicted of something? Ruling class criminal. A dictator. Has that been established? That's what he sought to do. He was going to suspend Congress and the courts and install himself as an autocrat.
But I mean, I don't think people really understand how oppressive this kind of thought is when you deal with it day in and day out, like in the media, in the social gatherings of the Tribune and Sun-Times and people like that. It is constant.
And excuse me, if somebody called a prosecutor a deranged thug, that would be the occasion to hold them in detention pending trial if they were bonded out? No, number one. Number two, by the way, this isn't just, right-wing extremist, conservative talk radio guy. Oh, by the way, the ACLU has rediscovered the Constitution.
Oh, God. They support him now, too, right?
No, they support Trump.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah, the gag order that Kirshner wants not only instituted, it's been temporarily paused so that both sides can submit arguments, but Kirshner not only wants it imposed, he also wants it enforced and Trump
jailed.
imprisoned right now. But the ACLU, talking about this gag order, which Chutkin, the Obama-appointed judge, any public statements that target the special counsel, defense counsel, blah, 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 target. The ACLU, in their brief, said that her gag order is unconstitutionally vague. The meaning is ambiguous, fails to provide fair warning that the Constitution demands, especially when, as here, concerns a prior restraint on speech, and so on and so forth. The ACLU, of course, which is a tool of the left, even felt compelled maybe to sort of try to rebrand themselves as actually interested in constitutional protections, even of people they don't like, which, of course, is the point of constitutional protections.
Right.
Maybe that, but regardless, so the ACLU's with me, and we're up against Nicole Wallace and Glenn Kirshner. Good grief!
I remember
honestly.
when the ACLU represented Nazis going to Skokie.
Well, again, when the Constitution is supposed to protect people you don't like, you disagree with. Otherwise, what would the need be if everybody agreed and was going to behave the same way on everything all the time? Of course. It's the hallmark of a free society, but the ACLU is sort of just has dalliances with the Constitution today. For more on this and other matters, please be joined by Kevin Brock, again, former Assistant Director of Intel for the FBI, former Principal Deputy Director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Kevin, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, Dan. John, nice to talk to you. How are you doing?
Hey, did you ever run across Glenn Kirshner in your time at the FBI?
No, and nobody like him, actually. Although I tend to agree with him, the privileged class does get treated differently. Look at what's going on with the Biden family,
Yeah,
and
right.
Where there's a lot more indicators of criminal activity than we've ever imagined with Donald Trump. And I'm not saying that as a Donald Trump fan, but I mean, just objectively, you look at what's going on with the Bidens and all the information that we know publicly. Clear indications and ample justification for federal investigation from Joe Biden all the way down through the rest of his family.
Well, what's going on at FBI headquarters where they can, as per Grassley's letter the other day, where they can ferret out and flush out and basically destroy and discredit sources that they're working with.
John, look at the totality of what we've seen so far. We've seen a number of whistleblowers come forward in frustration from both the FBI and the IRS. That doesn't happen unless there's something there to be frustrated about. You've got allegations by Grassley of 40 confidential human sources reporting information involving criminal activity of the Bidens. I find that a little bit hard to believe. I mean, 40 informants on one issue is a lot in the FBI. Usually that's a major nationwide criminal organization, so I'm wondering whether it could be 40 reports, but nevertheless, if it is true, it indicates that there is a substantial amount of people offering information about criminal activity, and yet nothing seems to be moving forward. And why is that? And there's frustration being expressed by line agents, by line assistant U.S. attorneys, and even the U.S. attorney in Pittsburgh, saying that this is going nowhere. So I see one of two explanations.
Yes, let's
Number one, the information that they've aggregated so far, they're struggling to get to a chargeable offense. In other words, they just don't have the evidence yet. Now and I know it may not sound plausible, but it's difficult to make cases, particularly when it involves bribery.
Just go look at what they're doing to Mike Madigan, and then.
Well, Mike Madigan. Well, let's not do Illinois. You can't get to the evidence if you're not looking for the evidence. That's the real issue, it seems, at the FBI.
Well, and that's my second point. The second point is, and I think it's becoming abundantly clear, we've got a Department of Justice that's just not going to charge the Bidens. I mean, if you have a Department of Justice that was willing to do a search warrant raid of Joe Biden's likely adversary in the 2024 presidential election. If you've got a DOJ that's willing to do an early morning raid of journalists over a $20 diary of a president's daughter, then you've got a DOJ that's not going to charge them for these things. It's becoming clear that this is just not going to happen.
You mentioned the former Pittsburgh U.S. Attorney Scott Brady. The testimony that he offered to the House Judiciary Committee was that his team found credible evidence in its initial review of Hunter Biden's dealings with Burisma and possible corruption by Joe Biden to refer criminal matters to 3 separate U.S. attorneys' offices in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Delaware. And almost immediately after resigning to justice in 2020, Brady said he encountered resistance at both the FBI and the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office that at times required him to escalate to his bosses in the Deputy Attorney General's office. I think there was this is his quote, I think there was reluctance on the part of the FBI to really do any tasking related to our assignment and looking into allegations of Ukrainian corruption broadly, and then specifically anything that intersected with Hunter Biden and his role at Burisma. It was very challenging, which is euphemistic lawyer speak for saying I got shut down.
It seems like there was a lot of work done on the ground. So agents doing investigations, United States attorneys getting information and trying to build cases, and then it would run into a roadblock either at FBI headquarters or at Main Justice, or referring to these other U.S. attorneys around the country that were supposed to be looking into this. It would come to full stop. So why is that? And that we don't know yet, but it looks like the word was out that the case isn't going to go anywhere, and that's why you've got whistleblowers, and that's why you've got people talking to Grassley out of frustration. So, it's. I don't think it's systemic throughout the FBI or the U.S. attorneys, assistant U.S. attorneys across the country, but I do think there's an effort higher up to thwart this investigation. It looks like it anyway.
When will the FBI clean itself? Is it possible that the FBI can cleanse itself?
Absolutely, and I resist the talk that from some presidential candidates. Well, we've got to disband the FBI. We got to start over again. That would be a fool's errand. It would be throwing out an awful lot of baby with bathwater. The FBI is still doing amazing things, and we actually need the FBI more now than ever right now. And we've got reports of belligerence from state-sponsored terrorism countries and known members of the watch list coming into this, being confronted at our borders right now in a surge that's taken place over the last year and a half. That's extremely worrisome. We need the CIA and the FBI to be determining what's behind that, where these people are, and then taking action to investigatively neutralize them. That's a clear and present danger, far worse than anything else we're talking about. And I'm not belittling or downplaying the danger of having a person in the White House right now who took enormous amounts of money into his family, and then is sending enormous amounts of money to the Ukraine and enacting policies that are friendly to China. That is scary and dangerous. But the FBI is, it gets amplified. This stuff gets amplified, but the FBI is still doing a lot of things that are important to this country that we can't interfere with right now.
And how much culpability does Christopher Wray have for knowing all this information that's coming out now and doing nothing about it, not uttering a word about it, not providing any indication of a reckoning inside the agency, of a course correction inside the agency? So how do we view the FBI? How do you trust the FBI with that kind of leadership?
And that's the problem, and I've written about this extensively. I said the number one job of an FBI director is to make sure that the American people have faith and trust in the FBI, because once that's lost, we have lost faith in a vital institution that makes this democracy run. If you don't have an objective law enforcement that's looking at corruption issues fairly and evenly, then where are we? So insofar as that mistrust still exists, and obviously you're expressing it, Dan, almost on a daily basis, then the FBI director is not doing that which he or she is supposed to be doing, and so there should be more. I've always called more transparency. Do not hide behind the the standard language of, well, this is an ongoing investigation, we really can't comment. It doesn't cut it in this day and age. Yeah. There are ways to be more transparent and to be more cooperative with the overseers in Congress, and that has to improve. There's no doubt.
Well, the good news is you've got company. I also don't trust the Department of Homeland Security, and that's continuing to deteriorate. This information out this week, emails that were gained through FOIA requests. The misinformation team in the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency within DHS had settled on a narrative for Hunter Biden's laptop by the following week after the New York Post story. Guilt by association with the Russian state and QAnon, and disinterest in authenticity and integrity, despite the FBI confirming nearly a year earlier that it was indeed his laptop, according to a contemporaneous IRS memo. So the FBI knew it was his laptop. The IRS knew it was his laptop. And a year after the fact, DHS runs a disinformation campaign sponsored by the Disinformation Board and all these intel and top law enforcement people that put their name on that letter.
Right. Well, and exactly, that letter is an indicator of how deep this goes. You got 51 former intelligence community, 90% of them were CIA intelligence community executives, signing a letter saying that this has all the classic earmarks of a Russian operation, when in fact the person who organized the letter, Michael Morell, admitted that he did it just to help Joe Biden, get elected.
Yeah. But the others signed it. But the others signed it, and
and the others signed it, and to this day, John, most of them say I'd sign it again. I mean, it's
Leon
that
Panetta,
tells you right there.
Yeah, we just said, it could be. It just has the earmarks. We didn't say it definitely was. Yeah, that's real. That's really exculpatory. And by the way, the FBI knew that was a lie, and nobody at the FBI said anything when they put that letter out.
No, they didn't, but nobody at the FBI was asked to sign the letter either, thankfully. And I know many of those individuals. I'm thankful they didn't ask me to sign it. I wouldn't have, but it's
my brother didn't sign it. My brother Nick did not sign it, and
his brother's CIA.
He was in this. Yeah. He served for 30 years to this country, and there are many people who dealt in senior intelligence and counterintelligence matters critical to the United States that did not sign it, nor would they be approached by hacks like Morell. And Morell knows better. He knows who he can go to. It's just like an intelligence op. He knows who he can go to and who he can't go to.
He knew the depth of distaste in this government for Donald Trump, and that it runs deep. Yeah. And so those people would be willing to put their integrity on the line and lose that integrity in order to keep him out of the White House. It's I don't know. That's a soul selling that is puzzling to me.
All right. Well, Kevin, if Trump gets back in or another Republican does, you stick by your phone because we're going to need you to run the FBI. Kevin Brock, former assistant director of Intel for the FBI, former principal deputy director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Kevin, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, gents. Good morning.
Nice talking.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
When you're serious about your concealed carry training and education and are ready to learn from an active police officer with a teaching degree, check out Illinois Concealed Carry Training in Midlothian. You'll learn safe, responsible firearm use, home defense planning, conflict avoidance, situational awareness, and how to remain physically, morally, and financially safe in the event you must use your firearm in self-defense or the defense of another. Weekday and weekend classes available.
I'm Sergeant Gary Carr, police firearms trainer and the owner of Illinois Concealed Carry Training. We'll arm you with what really counts, knowledge and training. All concealed carry curriculums are not created equal. This may be the single most important decision you'll ever make for yourself and your loved ones. Choose between 3 and 16-hour classes that are available both weekdays and weekends. We are your one-stop for concealed carry classes, fingerprints, and legal defense plans.
Register for a class today and get 10% off class fees with promo code AM560. Visit IllinoisConcealedCarry.com. That's IllinoisConcealedCarry.com.
Hey, business owners, are you wondering how to grow your business? Do you need cash flow and a ready source for financing? Well,